Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Mechabellum. In today's video, I want to highlight a build that's kind of been taking over high MMR in the past 2 weeks or so, I would say. You might have seen it on the ladder, you might have seen it in tournaments, or even in other videos, but I wanted to touch base and show you a game where I decided to play it. It is going to be Fort Fang, so spoilers. Let's have a quick look at the packs here. I think Amplify spec here looks good. Farseer spec is probably playable as well. On the day that I played this, I already played a lot of Ball Fang. I have been playing around with that pack a bunch because of the high hit points, and I think steel balls are quite good. But yeah, I wanted to try and play some Tarantula here. Not a big fan of sabers, not because I think they're bad, but it's just not really something that I enjoy playing. And we end up being in a mirror here against none other than Zemp, one of 401's strongest players, and he has been playing around with some aggro as of late. Now, one thing that's kind of important here is that we're in a mirror, and I'm very unfavored here. My opponent is a training specialist. I am a Farseer specialist, but both of us have spiders. Both of us have the fangs as the chaff, but my opponent started with double marksman. And because spider is so tanky, I don't really have any other option here other than to buy marksman. But my opponent already has marksman himself. He has one more than I can purchase, and he has the intensive training as well to get ahead in the Tarantula fight. Now he decides to not go for a marksman level, instead goes for a Tarantula level up now, so that the intensive goes off cooldown, or on cooldown rather, and then he can level that next turn and be ahead in this mirror, because levels are very important in mirrors, and so are deployments, and so are techs. So this is why I say I have a bit of a bad matchup, because either I forfeit round 1, in which case I'm behind, but what I mean by forfeit is I just buy double chaff, but I will lose because I don't have the damage to kill the tarantulas, or I play 2 marksmen, but I will probably find myself being behind in the next 2 turns anyway because of the starting pack and the specialist. So it's a bit of a rough spot to be in, and I didn't really know what to do because both options seemed like they wouldn't be good in the long run. And so already I'm starting to think, okay, I probably need to play for like the unit packs or something. I need to change my composition so that I no longer find myself in a mirror, because that is losing for me. And yeah, round 1 is a minor loss, but yeah, we do start losing out. Now, saving grace is I do get a level up on my marksman, which is quite nice. Photon coating here is available, could be a good item for my opponent. I'm not really looking for it here though, because again, I will probably have to pivot out of spider at some point and try to come up with something else. And that is, I guess, where the comp is going to come in that I want to highlight this video. Advanced shield here maybe could be interesting if I want to have some tempo. Advanced missile device is actually quite a good card as well, but I can't make good use out of it here. So, yeah, it is probably just going to be a skip here for me. Opponent decides to skip as well, grabs that level that he had available last turn thanks to the intensive training. And it's just going to be a level up on the tower here, some crawlers behind the tower. And maybe a flank. No flank at all. And just buys another Fang in the middle. So, pretty relaxed turn. Nothing special. But I mean, level 2 Tarantula on round 2. I'm not going to be able to kill that. Even if I insta-lock with my marksman here. Like, that's just not happening. And so here you can see me kind of trying to get by in the early game, right? I understand that I'm at a disadvantage. So the best thing I can do is just try and cheese the tower here by buying something like a wasp. Maybe this can cause some havoc in the next turn as well. And I'm just buying myself time for the free unit drop to show up and me to be able to pivot out of this mirror that we're finding ourselves in. Now my opponent does level the tower, so this will take some time. And will we be able to take the tower before the spider goes down? Doesn't quite look like it. That's a little bit unfortunate because, yeah, crawlers managed to get through as our left spider pretty much instantly died. And yeah, this is just too many hit points for me to deal with. And so maybe I should have just forfeited round 1 anyway and then gone for Phoenix, which is a very popular DPS option currently in the early game. Specifically because it's just much, much better at dealing with big targets than marksman. And yeah, that in itself can be really valuable. Also against things like the saber openers. I mean, there's just a lot of high hit point starting packs right now. And so Phoenix are quite popular. But it always feels bad to kind of give up the mirror if that's what you find yourself. And now here, round 3, we get the crucial thing that we were waiting for, which is the free units. Now, there's 2 options here, in my opinion, that you could go for. Either Stormcaller as a level 3. Lots of static targets, fangs, spiders, nothing is fast, so can get some value out of that. But there's also the Fortress, and honestly, Fortress with Fang Spawn currently is hands down the best comp. It's been played a lot by a lot of high MMR players. It's won multiple tournaments. It is just the comp right now, right? The flavor of the month, I guess. It has been popular for about a month, I would say. And yeah, you can see the techs here: range, fang spawn, anti-air barrage, and barrier. Those are, I think, the most common techs. Some people like switching out range for like rocket punch. Some people even give up barrier to run something like double shot or overload. All of that is fine, but fang spawn is the most important thing. And my opponent here goes for a different line. Decides to go for Stormcaller, which I think is good tempo. It's very strong on this turn, and it's good against giants as well. But obviously, I probably have a better scaling long-term plan here, as I'm able to grab another Fortress and still get a chaff pack down as well. And so suddenly we went from a board that was looking kind of empty on round 1 and 2 to a board that now has 2 Fortresses by round 3. On the other side, though, there is now a level 3 Tarantula. And here you can kind of understand why I wanted to get out of this mirror as soon as possible, right? There's nothing I can do about this. The intensive training here, and specifically the fact that I am in a mirror, means that I will simply be, well, down in tempo. I can't match these levels. I can't magically create level 2 Tarantulas from my level 1s. And yeah, that means that we find ourselves in a pickle, and this Tarantula seems like it will live. It even manages to out-damage the level 3 Stormcallers, dealing 35k on the round. It is an absolute menace this early on. Round number 4, Orbital Javelin shows up. That is almost always an insta-pick. It's one of those like amazing spells that has a pretty low cooldown, only 3 rounds instead of some of the other red spells that have 4. And then it's also super cheap, coming in at 200, so 250 if you factor in not skipping. And it just always gets value. If you can get a red spell twice in a game, which is often the case when it shows up on round 4, it's oftentimes worth picking up. Ion Beam is the other one that comes to mind. Now, I've kept my wasps here on the left. Main reason was because even if I sold it last turn, there was nothing I could purchase for it. So I'm just deciding to kind of keep it there, and as an annoyance for my opponent to deal with. You can see that he's buying some fangs over there, kind of extending his board to the left side now as well. And yeah, we decide to go for the Tarantula. My opponent goes for the Javelin here on the right. I kind of knew this was going to happen. It's the most logical thing to hit. There's a high-level marksman there. I did pick up a field recovery. I was thinking about selling one of these units, but I end up not doing it. So a bit of a loss of resources there, but field recovery will probably be useful anyway. I don't imagine myself keeping the Wasp, and I might end up selling the Tarantulas as well. Now this turn, my opponent adds more Stormcallers. Also a bunch of chaff, I think, has been added on his back line. We're doing a bit better, but yeah, still there's a lot of tempo coming out here from that leveled Spider, although that died this turn. And then also the leveled Stormcallers. You can see the damage here. It has now taken over that level 3 Tarantula and is top on damage on the team. I'm not too concerned here, though. I didn't want to buy something like a Missile Interceptor. If I lose it, which is quite likely, I'm just further behind in tempo again. And here, another red spell. I just mentioned it, Ion Blast. There it is, round 5. Another really powerful spell, super cheap. And if it does land like you want, which is a bit tricky, granted, we've all missed them, it deals so much damage. And yeah, Zemp here goes for it, has a nice lineup. from my fortresses, and I decide to pick up mass-produced fortress after a bit of a think. I think this card is absolutely insane. If you manage to get it early and you do run Fang Spawn, it is like close to an insta-win. Unless your opponent goes for it as well, it is very hard to deal with. And that's why I pick it up. I know I have 3 fortresses, so I do debuff myself somewhat, but... well, 300 cost fortresses are simply so cheap that I think it's worth going for here. And it will allow me to kind of spam these guys if I need to. And it allows us to buy 2 fortresses here on the left side. I can still sell something and then also get something like the Fang production out. So we sell a Tarantula since it's not doing too much. And at this point, I have a Farseer on the right side here to cover, which I got last round for my specialist. And then the fortresses and the Fangs together should probably be able to chaff there quite well. We can see a bit of a backline chaff army here, though. I think Zemp doing the correct thing there. As my chaff clear definitely isn't the best. And that's kind of how this comp works usually. It just kind of overwhelms the opponent with the amount of units you have. And then by default, you will also chaff clear. Kind of brute force your way through the chaff. Right side does collapse though. Stormcallers. This time not doing too much, but I mean, I think it's mostly because of the ion beam there, killing the fortresses before the storms could do anything. And the wasps here are being relatively useful, I do have to say. Marksman there being locked up. Does look like another loss, but again, we didn't pick the spell there. And at least if we can kill this spider, which we can, we somewhat limit the damage taken on this turn. And we did get the Fang spawn out. So, well, we're getting a bit close to scary hit point territory. 1300, but, you know, we got an important tech out. And we now have a pretty scary board ourselves. Already 5 fortresses on the field. Now, this round, I have to be very, very careful here about the Wraith. I know it's a problem, because there's no way if my opponent goes for something like regen, which he doesn't have, but I don't know that, or even armor, there's no way these marksmen or this Farseer are going to kill it. So I have to buy something against that. And yeah, it does show up. When I'm on 1300 hit points, I have to respect this as a potential option. There's no counter to it available here, so I'll have to buy something myself. And honestly, the only useful thing for me would be something like Melter. Now, I decided to pick up the Vulcan, and the main reason for that is, well, oil is still available on the tower, and I can set that on fire. I'll sell this guy next turn, but on this turn, I can kind of regain some tempo myself by trying to light my enemy's board on fire, and maybe I can even kill these Stormcallers there in the back. We do pick up a Melter. I sell my Farseer, and I decide to grab the range immediately. It's a bit of a gamble here. I didn't know if he would put the Wraith on the right side or the left side. I decide to gamble right side. I add another fortress, and let's see how it goes. Opponent did level up the Wraith, so it's now level 4. Very, very tanky. And also the tower here is leveled up. HE on the Tarantulas to try and deal with the Fangs a bit better. And more Tarantulas from the looks of it. Also a Crawler there. A flank from my opponents coming in. And yeah, the fire does land. So all of these units from my opponents will die. Looks like the fortresses this time around managed to find their mark. And this is going to be a big amount of damage. I mean, having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 giants alive so far, that is going to hurt. Keep in mind that even though these fortresses cost 300, they still deal 350 damage when they survive. And yeah, it looks like all of the giants will remain alive. So that's a massive turn, and my opponent hadn't taken any damage yet. But suddenly, he just took a boatload, 2.4k in one turn. And this is a pretty common play that you can do if you see a fire unit being offered and you haven't purchased oil yet. Go for this type of oil play. Not everyone will expect it, so it's quite normal for opponents not to shield. And yeah, you can get a really big turn thanks to that. Now, the Vulcan now is something I don't really need anymore, so I probably will sell it. And a mobilized battleship there was available, and I decided to go for it. I know that there's a lot of chaff in the backline here for my opponent, but he needs to add something for that Overlord to die. And if he doesn't add anything, we will still get a delayed debuff. That's kind of how that spell works. Even if you manage to distract it, it will still be there in your backline, which can be a big issue as we enter the mid-round. Now, I kind of have to be respectful of it as well, of course. We decided to missile out this crawler because it picks up a level, and I don't really want to address it in another way. And we pick up 2 more melters. One of them I put all the way here on the right side. The idea there is to preempt the Overlord if he went for it. We go for the barrier as well, as I was a bit afraid of like an enemy oil or anything of the sorts. But my opponent instead goes for crawlers with replicate, hoping to maybe replicate off of my fangs and punish my bad chaff clear. But yeah, really happy here with the barriers. Looks like we'll block some of that oil. And really happy with that pickup. I was thinking maybe fire Stormcallers, and that is indeed what's coming out. So that's why we went for these shields. It doesn't quite block everything, but it does block the oil from landing somewhat. We get a nice lock on there with the melters. And yeah, the Overlord is just sitting pretty in his back line. And we'll eventually kill that tower after killing off some of these Stormcallers. And with this many giants on the board, I think that might just be game on round 7. This is like such a brutal composition to play against. And the amount of value you get out of techs, yeah, there we go. Like Fang Spawn and Barrier, which don't get affected by the stat debuff from mass-produced Fortress, is just insane. And this is not even like one of those crazy games where I get it before I had Fortresses. I did debuff 3 of my own Fortresses, and I had to add some melters, of course, to be wary of the unit drop. Opponent there last round did pick up the absorption module instead of the Overlord drop, but I think I played around it pretty well. We had melters here to cover for it. And yeah, I mean, that's just how it works. I mean, if you have just a board with like this many giants, we have 6 fortresses with double techs, we have 3 melters on top of it. If you just win like 2 rounds, all of a sudden the game's over. 5 rounds, we were just struggling, taking damage round after round from our opponent. And yeah, the good mirror matchup he had, the bad one for us. And then suddenly on round 6 and 7, we use the mechanics of the game, the unit drop, the oil. We use our card to be able to get these double techs out pretty early. And yeah, we just finished the game. Anyway, if you've played this comp, if you have thoughts about it, please leave them down below in the comments. Let me know what you think. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with my latest content. And check me out on Twitch if you want to see me play live. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.